My sister used my perfect 820 credit score to secretly purchase a $300,000 house, then moved her unemployed ex-boyfriend in with her while I was working 3 jobs to maintain the pristine financial reputation she had stolen. The betrayal that nearly destroyed my life became the foundation for building something extraordinary. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The notification arrived on a Tuesday morning at 6:47 a.m., precisely 3 minutes after I had submitted my final loan application for the small bakery I had dreamed of opening for 7 years. The email from First National Bank contained words that made my stomach drop through the floor. We regret to inform you that your loan application has been denied due to excessive existing mortgage debt and recent significant credit utilization. I stared at my phone screen in complete bewilderment, reading the rejection letter twice before the words began to register. Excessive mortgage debt? I rented a modest 1-bedroom apartment in downtown Charlotte and had never owned property in my life. Recent significant credit utilization? I had not made a major purchase in months and maintained credit card balances below 10% of available limits. My name is Jessica Chen, and at 29 years old, I had spent the previous decade building what I considered to be an impeccable financial foundation. While my friends accumulated student loan debt and credit card balances, I had worked multiple jobs throughout college, graduated debt-free, and methodically constructed a credit profile that financial advisors described as textbook perfect. The 820 credit score had been achieved through years of disciplined financial behavior that bordered on obsessive. Every bill was paid automatically on the first of each month. Credit cards were used strategically for recurring expenses and paid in full before interest accrued. I tracked every transaction through detailed spreadsheets and reviewed credit reports quarterly to ensure accuracy and monitor for fraudulent activity. This financial discipline had been motivated by more than personal responsibility. Growing up in a household where financial instability created constant stress and family conflict, I had committed to building the kind of economic security that would provide options and peace of mind. The bakery represented the culmination of that commitment, a business opportunity that would transform my financial foundation into generational wealth. The loan denial was devastating, but the explanation was impossible to comprehend. I immediately called First National Bank to request clarification about the supposed mortgage debt that had triggered the rejection. According to our records, you have a current mortgage balance of $287,000 with Mountain View Credit Union, originated 6 months ago, explained Patricia Williams, the loan officer who had processed my application. The monthly payment of $2,400 represents a significant debt-to-income ratio that exceeds our lending criteria for additional financing. The information was categorically incorrect, but Patricia's confidence suggested that her records were comprehensive and current. She provided the mortgage account number, origination date, and property address, 1247 Maple Ridge Drive in Asheville, North Carolina. The address meant nothing to me, but the mountain location was suspicious because my sister Amanda lived in Asheville and had mentioned purchasing a house earlier that year. There must be some mistake, I told Patricia. I have never applied for a mortgage with Mountain View Credit Union or any other institution. Could you verify the Social Security number associated with this account? Patricia confirmed that the mortgage was indeed listed under my Social Security number, along with my full legal name and birth date. The documentation appeared legitimate and complete, suggesting either sophisticated identity theft or involvement by someone with access to my personal information. The realization that struck me was immediate and nauseating. Amanda was the only person who possessed all the personal details necessary to successfully impersonate me for a major financial transaction. As my emergency contact for work and medical purposes, she had copies of my identification documents, knew my employment history, and was familiar with my financial habits and credit profile. More troubling was the timeline. 6 months earlier, Amanda had called excitedly to announce that she had qualified for a mortgage and was purchasing her first home. She had attributed her approval to improved credit and stable employment, but had been vague about the specific financial details. I had congratulated her enthusiastically, proud that she had achieved homeownership despite a history of financial challenges. Amanda's financial history was essentially the inverse of mine. Throughout her 20s, she had accumulated credit, card debt, defaulted on student loans, and faced multiple collection actions. Her credit score had fluctuated between 480 and 520, making her ineligible for traditional mortgage financing, even with favorable market conditions. The contrast between our financial profiles had occasionally created tension in our relationship. Amanda sometimes expressed resentment about my financial success, suggesting that I was lucky or privileged, rather than acknowledging the sacrifices and discipline that had created my stable situation. However, I had never imagined that her jealousy might motivate actual fraud. I spent the remainder of the morning requesting credit reports from all 3 major bureaus and contacting Mountain View Credit Union to investigate the mortgage account. The credit reports confirmed Patricia's information. A $300,000 mortgage originated 6 months earlier was indeed listed under my name and Social Security number, along with the associated monthly payment obligation. Mountain View Credit Union's customer service representative provided additional details that strengthened my growing suspicion about Amanda's involvement. The mortgage application had been submitted in person at their Asheville branch, with supporting documentation including employment verification from Greenfield Elementary School, where Amanda worked as a 3rd-grade teacher. The application was processed normally through our standard verification procedures, explained Robert Martinez, the customer service supervisor. All required documentation was provided, including income verification, bank statements, and identification. The applicant met our lending criteria and the loan was approved without complications. When I requested copies of the application documents, Robert explained that privacy regulations prevented sharing mortgage information without proper authorization. However, he confirmed that I could visit any Mountain View Credit Union branch with appropriate identification to review my account details and obtain documentation. The 40-minute drive to Asheville provided time to process the implications of what I was discovering. If Amanda had indeed used my identity to obtain mortgage financing, the fraud represented not just theft of my credit profile, but potential destruction of the financial foundation I had spent years building. The mortgage payments would need to be maintained to prevent default and foreclosure, which would devastate my credit score and eliminate any possibility of obtaining legitimate financing. More personally devastating was the realization that my own sister had betrayed my trust in such a comprehensive and calculated manner. The mortgage fraud required advanced planning, documentation gathering, and deliberate deception that extended over months. This was not an impulsive mistake, but a systematic theft of my identity and financial reputation. The Mountain View Credit Union branch in Asheville was located in a modern strip mall adjacent to the elementary school where Amanda worked. The proximity seemed more than coincidental, suggesting that she had chosen this particular lender based on convenience and familiarity with the local market. Inside the bank, I presented my identification to customer service representative Monica Rivera and explained that I needed to review mortgage account information that appeared to be associated with my Social Security number. Monica's expression shifted from professional courtesy to concern as she reviewed the account details on her computer screen. "There appears to be some confusion about this account," Monica said carefully. "The mortgage holder listed here has your name and Social Security number, but the employment verification shows Greenfield Elementary School, and the contact phone number is different from what you provided today." Monica printed copies of the mortgage application documents, and my worst suspicions were immediately confirmed. The signature on the application was clearly Amanda's handwriting, which I recognized from years of birthday cards and family correspondence. The employment information, bank account numbers, and contact details all belonged to Amanda, but the legal name and social security number were mine. The fraud was comprehensive and sophisticated, involving forged identification documents and falsified financial information. Amanda had apparently created a hybrid identity that combined her actual employment and banking information with my legal identity and credit profile. The approach had successfully deceived Mountain View Credit Union's verification procedures while providing Amanda with access to mortgage financing she could never have obtained legitimately. This appears to be identity theft, Monica concluded after reviewing the documentation. You should file a police report immediately and contact our fraud department to dispute the mortgage account. We can place a hold on any future transactions while the investigation proceeds. The suggestion to file a police report crystallized the reality of what had occurred. Amanda had not simply borrowed my credit profile or made an impulsive financial mistake. She had committed a federal crime that could result in criminal prosecution and imprisonment. The sister, who had been my closest family relationship since childhood, had betrayed me in the most devastating way possible. As I drove home with copies of the fraudulent mortgage documents, my phone rang with a call from Amanda. The timing seemed suspicious, as if she had somehow learned about my visit to Mountain View Credit Union. Her voice carried an unusual tension that I had not previously noticed. "Hey, Jessica. I was just thinking about you and wanted to see how things are going with the bakery loan," Amanda said, her tone artificially casual. "Have you heard anything back from the bank yet?" The irony of her question was almost overwhelming. Amanda was asking about the loan application that her fraud had caused to be denied, while pretending ignorance about the mortgage theft that had destroyed my financing options. "Actually, there's been a problem with my credit report," I replied, carefully testing her reaction. "It looks like there might be some fraudulent activity that I need to investigate." Amanda's response was immediate and telling. "Oh no, that's terrible. Identity theft is so common these days. You should definitely look into that right away and make sure it doesn't affect your credit score." Her apparent concern was undermined by the specific mention of credit score impact, which suggested knowledge about how mortgage fraud would affect my financial profile. A truly innocent person would have expressed general sympathy rather than demonstrating understanding of the technical implications. "I'm planning to investigate thoroughly," I continued, watching for additional reactions. "I found a mortgage account that I never opened, so I'll need to file fraud reports and possibly involve law enforcement." This time, Amanda's pause was longer before responding. "That sounds really serious. I hope you can get it resolved quickly without too much damage to your finances." After ending the call, I realized that Amanda's behavior confirmed her involvement in the mortgage fraud. Her questions about my loan application demonstrated that she understood the connection between her actions and my financial difficulties. Her emphasis on credit protection revealed knowledge about how identity theft affects victims. Most significantly, her immediate concern about law enforcement suggested awareness that her actions constituted criminal behavior. The evening was spent documenting everything I had discovered and developing a strategy for addressing the fraud systematically. The situation required careful coordination between multiple institutions and agencies to minimize damage to my financial profile while ensuring that Amanda faced appropriate consequences for her actions. However, as I reviewed the mortgage documents and considered the implications of Amanda's betrayal, I began to recognize that this crisis might also represent an opportunity. The skills and knowledge I had developed through years of financial discipline could be applied to help others navigate similar challenges. The experience of recovering from identity theft could become the foundation for expertise that would benefit victims of financial fraud. The sister who had stolen my credit score and nearly destroyed my dreams had inadvertently provided the motivation and knowledge necessary to build something far more significant than a single bakery. Amanda's betrayal would become the catalyst for creating a business that protected others from the devastation she had caused me. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The realization that emerged from this devastating day was both painful and empowering. Family relationships could be rebuilt or replaced, but the strength and knowledge gained from overcoming betrayal would remain forever. Amanda had taken my credit score, but she had given me something far more valuable: the determination to build. Something extraordinary from the ashes of her deception. Tomorrow would begin the process of reclaiming my financial identity and transforming this betrayal into the foundation for something she could never steal or destroy. The sleepless night that followed my discovery of Amanda's mortgage fraud was spent developing a comprehensive strategy for addressing the situation. By dawn, I had created a detailed timeline of events, compiled all available documentation, and researched the legal procedures for reporting identity theft. The methodical approach that had built my financial success would now be applied to dismantling the fraud that threatened to destroy it. My first priority was gathering additional evidence before confronting Amanda directly. The mortgage documents from Mountain View Credit Union provided substantial proof of fraud, but I needed to understand the complete scope of her deception. If Amanda had been willing to steal my identity for a house purchase, there might be additional fraudulent accounts or transactions that had not yet appeared on my credit reports. The morning was spent conducting a forensic review of my financial history, examining bank statements, credit card records, and utility accounts for any irregularities that might indicate broader identity theft. The process revealed several concerning patterns that I had previously attributed to normal administrative variations, but now recognized as potential evidence of systematic fraud. 3 months earlier, I had received a credit monitoring alert about a new inquiry from a furniture financing company. The alert had seemed routine, as I occasionally researched major purchases without completing transactions. However, the timing now seemed suspicious, occurring shortly after Amanda had mentioned furnishing her new house but expressing concern about the costs involved. Similarly, I discovered 2 recent inquiries from appliance retailers that I had not initiated. The credit checks had been soft inquiries that did not impact my credit score, but they suggested that someone had been researching financing options using my personal information. The pattern indicated that Amanda's identity theft might extend beyond the mortgage to include furnishing and equipping the house she had purchased with my credit profile. The most disturbing discovery came when I contacted my cellular service provider to verify account security. Customer service representative Michael Torres revealed that someone had attempted to add an additional line to my account 2 weeks earlier, providing my personal information but requesting service activation at the Asheville address that matched Amanda's fraudulent mortgage. The request was denied because the billing address didn't match our records, Michael explained. But the caller had your social security number, birth date, and account PIN, so they definitely had access to comprehensive personal information. This revelation confirmed that Amanda's fraud was ongoing and expanding. She was not simply maintaining the fraudulent mortgage, but actively attempting to establish additional accounts and services using my identity. The cellular service attempt suggested that she was comfortable enough with her deception to continue exploiting my financial profile for routine expenses. Armed with this additional evidence, I decided that direct confrontation was necessary before the fraud expanded further. However, the conversation would need to be carefully managed to gather maximum information while avoiding potential destruction of evidence or flight risk. I had learned enough about Amanda's deception to know that she was capable of sophisticated planning and calculated dishonesty. The decision to visit Amanda's house unannounced was strategic rather than emotional. By appearing at the property she had purchased with my stolen identity, I could observe the full extent of her fraud while preventing her from preparing explanations or destroying documentation. The element of surprise would also provide the best opportunity to gauge her genuine reactions and assess whether she had accomplices or additional schemes in progress. The drive to 1247 Maple Ridge Drive took 45 minutes through winding mountain roads that led to an upscale subdivision I had never visited previously. The neighborhood was significantly more expensive than any area Amanda could afford on her teaching salary, with well-maintained homes featuring professional landscaping and luxury vehicles in the driveways. Amanda's house was a 2-story colonial-style home with stone accents and a 3-car garage, easily worth the $300,000 mortgage amount reflected in the fraudulent documents. The property was immaculately maintained, with seasonal decorations and garden features that suggested substantial ongoing investment in maintenance and improvements. Most shocking was the presence of 2 vehicles in the driveway that I recognized immediately. Amanda's silver Honda Civic sat beside a black pickup truck that belonged to Derek Williams, her ex-boyfriend who had been unemployed for the past 8 months. The couple had ended their relationship 3 months earlier, after numerous arguments about Derek's refusal to seek employment or contribute to household expenses. The presence of Derek's truck indicated that Amanda had not only used my identity to purchase a house she could not afford, but had also allowed her unemployed ex-boyfriend to move in and benefit from the fraudulent arrangement. The situation was even more outrageous than I had initially understood, involving multiple people who were profiting from the theft of my financial identity. I parked across the street and spent several minutes observing the property to understand the living situation more completely. Through the large front windows, I could see expensive furniture and a large-screen television that confirmed Amanda was living well beyond her legitimate means. The lawn care equipment visible in the open garage suggested ongoing expenses that would be impossible to maintain on a single teaching salary. When I finally approached the front door, my hands were trembling with a combination of anger and anticipation. The doorbell chimed with an elaborate melody that seemed to mock the modest lifestyle Amanda should have been able to afford legitimately. Through the frosted glass panels beside the door, I could see movement and hear voices inside the house. Amanda answered the door wearing casual clothes and an expression of genuine surprise that quickly shifted to concern when she saw my face. Behind her, I could see Derek lounging on an expensive leather sectional sofa, watching television and eating what appeared to be takeout food. The domestic scene was jarring considering the fraudulent foundation that made it possible. "Jessica, what a surprise," Amanda said, her voice carrying forced cheerfulness that didn't mask her obvious nervousness. "What brings you all the way up here? You should have called first." "We need to talk," I replied evenly, looking past her toward Derek, who had glanced up from the television with apparent recognition of the tension in my voice. "Privately would be best, but I suppose Derek is part of this conversation too." Amanda's face flushed slightly, confirming that she understood the purpose of my visit. "Part of what conversation? Is everything okay? You seem upset about something." The attempt to maintain innocence was almost insulting considering the comprehensive evidence I had gathered. "Amanda, I know about the mortgage. I know about Mountain View Credit Union. I know about the house you bought using my identity and credit score." The color drained from Amanda's face as she processed my words. Derek must have heard enough to understand the situation because he turned off the television and stood up, approaching the front door with an expression of concern. The reaction suggested that both of them were aware of the fraudulent arrangement and had been living with the knowledge that discovery was possible. "I think you're confused about something," Amanda said weakly, but her voice lacked conviction. "Why don't you come inside and we can talk about whatever is bothering you?" "I'm not confused, Amanda. I have copies of the mortgage application, with your signature on documents that list my name and social security number. I've spoken with Mountain View Credit Union. I know exactly what you did." Derek joined Amanda at the door, and his presence confirmed my suspicion that he was complicit in the fraud. "Maybe there's been some kind of mistake or misunderstanding," he offered, but his tone suggested that he was trying to diffuse a situation rather than clarify confusion. "The only mistake was trusting my sister with access to my personal information," I replied, looking directly at Amanda. "The only misunderstanding was thinking that you had enough integrity to avoid stealing from family." Amanda finally abandoned her attempt to deny the fraud, and her expression shifted from false confusion to defensive anger. "You don't understand the situation I was in. I needed a place to live, and I couldn't qualify for a mortgage with my credit score. You weren't using your credit for anything important." The rationalization was breathtaking in its selfishness and ignorance. Not using my credit for anything important? "Amanda, you destroyed my loan application for the bakery. You've potentially ruined my ability to get financing for anything. You committed federal crimes using my identity." "The bakery was just a dream," Amanda shot back, revealing that she had been monitoring my financial plans and minimizing their importance. "You could do that any time. I needed housing immediately, and this was the only way I could make it work." Derek stepped forward, apparently feeling the need to defend Amanda's actions. "Your sister was in a really difficult situation. The apartment complex was raising her rent, and she couldn't find anything affordable in Asheville. She was going to have to move back in with your parents." The explanation revealed additional layers of deception and planning. Amanda had not simply seen an opportunity and acted impulsively. She had been facing a housing crisis and had systematically planned to solve it by stealing my identity rather than addressing her financial problems legitimately. So instead of improving her credit, increasing her income, or finding affordable housing, she decided to commit fraud and potentially destroy my financial future, I responded, incredulous at their attempt to justify the theft. "It's not like that," Amanda protested. "I'm making the mortgage payments. Your credit isn't being hurt. I'm maintaining everything properly, and you're not being affected." The assertion demonstrated Amanda's complete failure to understand the implications of her actions. "Amanda, the mortgage is listed on my credit report. It's affecting my debt-to-income ratio and preventing me from getting legitimate financing. My loan application was denied because of what you did." "Well, maybe you could wait a while before applying for business loans," Derek suggested, as if my career plans should be subordinated to their fraudulent living arrangement. "Amanda needs time to figure out a long-term solution." The conversation was becoming increasingly surreal as Amanda and Derek revealed the depth of their entitlement and the extent to which they had planned to continue benefiting from the fraud. They were not simply asking for forgiveness for a momentary lapse in judgment, but requesting that I indefinitely postpone my legitimate financial goals to accommodate their criminal arrangement. "There is no long-term solution that involves my identity," I stated firmly. "This ends immediately. You need to contact Mountain View Credit Union today and explain that the mortgage was obtained fraudulently. You need to arrange to transfer the loan to your own name or begin foreclosure proceedings." Amanda's expression hardened as she realized that I was not going to be manipulated into accepting the situation. "I can't transfer the mortgage to my name. I told you, I don't qualify for financing. If I contact the bank, they'll start foreclosure proceedings immediately." "That's exactly what should happen," I replied. "You obtained the house through fraud, so you should lose it through foreclosure. The consequences of your criminal behavior are not my responsibility." "But where would we live?" Derek asked, revealing his personal investment in maintaining the fraudulent arrangement. "Amanda can't afford rent and a mortgage payment while this gets sorted out." The question illuminated the complete absence of legitimate planning that had motivated Amanda's fraud. She had stolen my identity to obtain housing she could not afford, moved in her unemployed boyfriend, and had no strategy for maintaining the arrangement legally or transitioning to legitimate housing. "You should have considered housing arrangements before committing federal crimes," I told Derek directly. "Your housing situation is not my problem, especially since you're benefiting from the theft of my identity." Amanda's response revealed the depths of her sense of entitlement and her complete failure to understand the gravity of her actions. "Jessica, you're being completely unreasonable. I'm your sister. We're family. You should be trying to help me. Figure this out instead of threatening to destroy my life." "You destroyed your own life when you decided to commit fraud," I replied. "And you attempted to destroy mine in the process. The fact that we're family makes your betrayal worse, not Better. The conversation continued for another 20 minutes, with Amanda and Derek proposing increasingly unrealistic solutions that would allow them to continue benefiting from the fraud while minimizing consequences. They suggested that I could co-sign for a legitimate mortgage to replace the fraudulent one, that I could claim joint ownership of the house, or that I could wait several years while Amanda improved her credit to qualify for refinancing. Each suggestion demonstrated their fundamental failure to understand that fraud is not a problem to be managed, but a crime that must be rectified. They were asking me to become complicit in covering up Amanda's criminal behavior rather than accepting responsibility for their actions. The most revealing moment came when Amanda finally expressed her true feelings about the situation. I worked just as hard as you did to build a good life, but I didn't have the same advantages. You got lucky with your credit score and your savings. This was just evening things out between us. The comment exposed the resentment and jealousy that had motivated Amanda's fraud. She had convinced herself that my financial success was the result of luck rather than discipline, and that stealing my identity was a form of justice rather than theft. The rationalization revealed a level of self-deception that made meaningful accountability unlikely. As I prepared to leave, I made my intentions completely clear to both Amanda and Derek. I'm filing a police report today. I'm disputing the mortgage with Mountain View Credit Union. I'm reporting the fraud to all 3 credit bureaus. You have until the end of the week to contact an attorney and begin making arrangements to address this situation legally. Amanda's final attempt to manipulate me revealed the calculating nature of her deception. If you do this, you'll destroy our relationship forever. Mom and Dad will be devastated. The whole family will be affected. Is your precious credit score really worth breaking up our family? The emotional manipulation was as transparent as it was offensive. Amanda was attempting to make me responsible for family consequences that would result from her criminal behavior, rather than accepting accountability for the choices that had created the crisis. You broke up our family when you decided to steal from me, I responded. You destroyed our relationship when you chose fraud over honesty. The consequences you're facing now are the result of your choices, not mine. As I walked back to my car, I could hear Amanda and Derek arguing inside the house about their next steps. The conversation I had overheard suggested that they were more concerned about maintaining their fraudulent lifestyle than addressing the legal and ethical implications of their actions. The drive home provided time to process the full scope of what I had discovered. Amanda's fraud was not a momentary lapse in judgment, but a calculated criminal scheme that she was prepared to maintain indefinitely at my expense. Derek's involvement revealed that multiple people were benefiting from the theft of my identity, and their joint resistance to accountability suggested that they would continue the fraud unless forced to stop through legal intervention. More importantly, the confrontation had revealed Amanda's true character in ways that fundamentally changed our relationship forever. The sister I had loved and trusted had been replaced by someone willing to destroy my financial future for her personal convenience. The betrayal was complete and irreversible. However, as painful as the discovery was personally, it also provided clarity about the steps necessary to reclaim my financial identity and build something meaningful from the experience. Amanda's fraud had given me first-hand knowledge of identity, theft, credit manipulation, and financial recovery that could benefit others facing similar challenges. The evening was spent documenting the confrontation and finalizing my strategy for addressing the fraud through legal channels. Tomorrow would begin the process of transforming Amanda's betrayal into the foundation for something she could never steal or destroy. Expertise gained through adversity and strength built through overcoming deliberate sabotage. Amanda had stolen my credit score, but she had given me something far more valuable: the motivation to build a business that would protect others from experiencing the devastation she had caused me. Her betrayal would become the catalyst for creating something extraordinary from the ashes of destroyed trust. The morning following my confrontation with Amanda marked the beginning of what would become a comprehensive legal and financial recovery campaign. Armed with documented evidence of the mortgage fraud and recordings of our conversation, where she had essentially confessed to the identity theft, I prepared to engage multiple institutions and agencies in a coordinated effort to restore my financial integrity. My first priority was establishing legal representation that specialized in identity theft and financial fraud cases. The complexity of the situation required expertise that extended beyond standard consumer protection, particularly given that the perpetrator was a family member with ongoing access to my personal information and continued opportunities for additional fraud. Research into Charlotte area attorneys who handled identity theft cases led me to the law firm of Morrison Blake and Associates, which had built a reputation for aggressive pursuit of financial fraud cases and comprehensive client advocacy. The firm's website featured testimonials from clients who had recovered significant damages from identity theft situations, and their approach emphasized both legal remediation and long-term financial protection. Catherine Morrison, the firm's founding partner, agreed to meet with me that afternoon after I explained the scope of Amanda's fraud and the evidence I had gathered. Her initial assessment during our phone conversation suggested that the case represented both clear-cut criminal activity and significant civil liability that could result in substantial damages beyond simple financial restoration. The meeting with Catherine Morrison exceeded my expectations for both legal expertise and strategic thinking. After reviewing the mortgage documents, credit reports, and recordings from my confrontation with Amanda, she confirmed that the fraud constituted multiple felony offenses under federal and state law, including identity theft, wire fraud, and mortgage fraud. Your sister has committed serious crimes that carry potential prison sentences of several years, Catherine explained during our consultation. The sophistication of the fraud, the dollar amount involved, and the ongoing nature of the deception will be viewed seriously by prosecutors. This is not a case of someone making a single mistake, but rather systematic criminal activity. More importantly for my immediate concerns, Catherine outlined a comprehensive strategy for financial recovery that would proceed simultaneously with criminal prosecution. The approach would involve disputing the fraudulent mortgage with Mountain View Credit Union, filing complaints with federal agencies, and pursuing civil litigation against both Amanda and Derek for damages that extended beyond the direct financial impact. The goal is not simply to remove the mortgage from your credit report, but to ensure that you recover all damages caused by the fraud and receive compensation for the ongoing impact on your financial opportunities, Catherine continued. Your sister's actions have cost you more than just the denied loan application. They have damaged your reputation with financial institutions and created ongoing risks that will require monitoring and protection. The legal strategy also addressed my concerns about Amanda's potential for additional fraudulent activity. Catherine recommended immediate implementation of comprehensive credit monitoring, placement of fraud alerts with all major credit bureaus, and coordination with law enforcement to ensure that any future identity theft attempts would be detected and prosecuted aggressively. Our discussion revealed additional legal considerations that I had not initially recognized. The presence of Derek Williams in the fraudulently purchased house potentially made him a co-conspirator in the fraud, particularly if he had knowledge of the identity theft and was benefiting from the arrangement. His unemployment status and dependence on Amanda for housing provided motivation for encouraging or facilitating the fraudulent scheme. We will need to investigate Derek's level of involvement and determine whether he should be named as a defendant in civil litigation, Catherine noted. If he was aware of the fraud and encouraged it, he could be liable for damages even if he did not directly participate in the identity theft. The legal consultation concluded with Catherine accepting representation and immediately filing motions to freeze any potential transfer of assets from the fraudulently purchased property. The action would prevent Amanda from selling the house or refinancing the mortgage before the fraud investigation was completed, protecting my interests while ensuring that evidence remained available for prosecution. My next priority was filing a comprehensive police report that would initiate criminal investigation of Amanda's fraud. The Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department's Financial Crimes Unit specialized in identity theft cases and had experience working with federal agencies when fraud crossed state lines or involved federally regulated institutions. Detective Sarah Martinez, who was assigned to investigate my case, demonstrated immediate understanding of the serious nature of Amanda's fraud and the evidence I had gathered. The recorded conversation with Amanda, combined with the forged mortgage, documents and timeline of fraudulent activity, provided what Detective Martinez described as an exceptionally strong foundation for criminal prosecution. Most identity theft cases involve victims who discover fraud months or years after it occurs, when evidence has been destroyed and perpetrators have disappeared, Detective Martinez explained during our meeting. Your systematic documentation and immediate response have preserved evidence that will make prosecution much more straightforward. The criminal investigation would proceed independently of the civil litigation, but Detective Martinez confirmed that coordination between law enforcement and my attorney would ensure that both tracks of accountability moved forward efficiently. The investigation would also examine whether Amanda's fraud extended beyond the mortgage to include other accounts or transactions that had not yet been discovered. Detective Martinez's preliminary investigation revealed that Amanda had been researching identity theft techniques and mortgage fraud procedures for several months before executing her scheme. Internet search records obtained through warrant showed that she had specifically researched how to use someone else's credit score for mortgage applications and how to avoid detection by financial institutions. This was clearly premeditated. Criminal activity, not an impulsive decision made during a financial crisis, Detective Martinez concluded. The evidence suggests that your sister spent considerable time planning this fraud and understanding how to execute it successfully. The criminal investigation also revealed additional victims of Amanda's deceptive practices. 2 former colleagues at Greenfield Elementary School reported that Amanda had requested copies of their pay stubs and employment verification documents, claiming she needed examples for her mortgage application. The requests had seemed unusual, but not necessarily suspicious until Detective Martinez contacted them as part of the fraud investigation. While the legal and criminal proceedings were being initiated, I focused on beginning the process of financial recovery through direct engagement with the institutions that had been deceived by Amanda's fraud. The approach required careful coordination to ensure that my actions supported, rather than complicated, the ongoing investigations. Mountain View Credit Union's fraud department, headed by Supervisor David Thompson, responded immediately to my formal dispute of the fraudulent mortgage account. The bank's preliminary investigation confirmed that their standard verification procedures had been circumvented through sophisticated document forgery and identity manipulation. The mortgage application included what appeared to be legitimate employment verification, bank statements, and identification documents, David explained during our meeting. Your sister clearly invested significant effort in creating convincing supporting documentation that passed our normal fraud detection procedures. However, Mountain View Credit Union's investigation also revealed security gaps in their verification process that had made Amanda's fraud possible. The bank had relied heavily on document review rather than direct verification with employers and previous financial institutions, creating opportunities for sophisticated document forgery to succeed. We are implementing enhanced verification procedures that would have detected this type of fraud, David assured me. But our immediate priority is working with law enforcement and your attorney to ensure that the fraudulent mortgage is resolved properly and that your credit profile is fully restored. The bank's cooperation extended beyond simple removal of the fraudulent mortgage from my credit report. Mountain View Credit Union agreed to provide comprehensive documentation of Amanda's fraud for use in criminal prosecution and civil litigation, and committed to covering costs associated with credit monitoring and identity protection services that would be necessary following the fraud. More significantly, the bank's investigation revealed that Amanda had attempted to obtain additional credit products using my identity during the months following the mortgage approval. Applications for credit cards and personal loans had been submitted using variations of my personal information, though these had been denied due to the mortgage's impact on my debt-to-income ratio. The pattern of ongoing fraud attempts demonstrated that Amanda had viewed the successful mortgage theft as the beginning of a broader identity exploitation scheme rather than a one-time solution to her housing problem. The discovery reinforced the importance of comprehensive legal action to prevent future fraudulent activity and ensure adequate consequences for the crimes she had already committed. Concurrent with the institutional responses, I began the process of restoring my credit profile through formal disputes with all three major credit reporting agencies. Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion each required comprehensive documentation of the identity theft and coordination with law enforcement to ensure that corrections to my credit report were permanent and complete. The credit restoration process revealed additional layers of damage that Amanda's fraud had caused beyond the obvious mortgage listing. Inquiries related to her fraudulent applications had created a pattern of credit-seeking behavior that could negatively impact my credit score even after the mortgage was removed. Address changes and employment verification requests had created confusion in my credit file that would require systematic correction. Jennifer Walsh, a credit restoration specialist at Experian, explained that identity theft victims often face ongoing challenges that extend far beyond removal of fraudulent accounts. Your sister's fraud has created inconsistencies in your credit profile that will require ongoing monitoring and correction. The restoration process typically takes several months to complete fully. However, the credit agencies also confirmed that the documented evidence of fraud I had gathered would accelerate the restoration process significantly. The recorded confession, police reports, and legal proceedings provided the type of verification that credit agencies required to make immediate corrections to my credit profile. Most identity theft cases involve disputes where the victim cannot definitively prove that accounts were opened fraudulently, Jennifer continued. Your documentation eliminates the ambiguity that usually slows the restoration process. By the end of the first week following my confrontation with Amanda, the legal and financial response to her fraud was proceeding on multiple coordinated tracks. Criminal prosecution was moving forward with strong evidence and cooperative law enforcement. Civil litigation was positioned to recover comprehensive damages and prevent future fraud. Financial institutions were implementing corrections and providing ongoing protection services. More importantly, the process of responding to Amanda's betrayal had revealed knowledge and capabilities that I had not previously recognized within myself. The systematic approach to documentation, legal strategy, and institutional coordination reflected skills that could be valuable in helping other identity theft victims navigate similar challenges. The realization that emerged during those intense days of legal and financial action was both empowering and motivating. Amanda's fraud had forced me to develop expertise in areas that could benefit others facing similar betrayals. The knowledge gained through adversity could become the foundation for a business that protected other potential victims from experiencing the devastation she had caused me. As I reviewed the progress made during the first week of recovery efforts, I began to envision how the skills and knowledge gained through this crisis could be transformed into something constructive and meaningful. Identity theft and financial fraud were growing problems that affected millions of people annually, and most victims lacked the resources and knowledge necessary to achieve full recovery. The idea began forming for a comprehensive identity protection and financial recovery service that would combine legal expertise, financial knowledge, and systematic advocacy to help identity theft victims reclaim their financial lives. The business concept would address gaps in existing services while providing the kind of comprehensive support that I had been forced to develop independently. Amanda's betrayal had inadvertently provided me with first-hand experience of every aspect of identity theft recovery, From initial discovery through legal prosecution and financial restoration, the expertise gained through necessity could become a valuable service for others facing similar challenges, transforming personal devastation into professional opportunity. The irony was becoming clear that Amanda's attempt to steal my financial future had actually provided the foundation for building something far more significant than the bakery she had prevented me from opening. Her fraud had forced me to develop capabilities and knowledge that could generate substantially more impact and income than any single small business venture. As the first week of legal proceedings concluded, I was no longer simply a victim of identity theft working toward recovery. I had become someone with comprehensive expertise in identity protection and financial fraud recovery, knowledge that represented valuable intellectual capital for building a meaningful business that would help others while generating substantial returns. The transformation from victim to expert had occurred through necessity, but the potential applications of that expertise extended far beyond personal recovery. Amanda had stolen my credit score, but she had inadvertently given me something far more valuable: the knowledge and motivation necessary to build a business that would protect others from experiencing similar betrayals. The second week of investigation into Amanda's fraud revealed layers of deception that extended far beyond the initial mortgage theft. What had initially appeared to be an isolated incident of identity theft was emerging as a systematic pattern of financial manipulation that had been occurring for nearly 8 months. Each new discovery reinforced the calculated nature of Amanda's betrayal while simultaneously expanding my understanding of financial fraud recovery techniques. Detective Martinez contacted me Tuesday morning with information that fundamentally altered my perception of Amanda's criminal activity. The forensic examination of Amanda's digital devices, obtained through search warrant, had revealed communications and financial records that demonstrated premeditation and coordination that extended beyond simple identity theft. Your sister has been involved in what appears to be a broader fraud scheme, Detective Martinez explained during our meeting at the police station. We found communications with individuals who specialize in document forgery and identity manipulation. This was not something she figured out independently. The communications evidence revealed that Amanda had been working with Marcus Thompson, a convicted felon who operated a document forgery operation from Atlanta. Marcus had provided Amanda with templates for creating false employment verification letters, bank statements, and identification documents that would pass routine verification procedures used by financial institutions. The professional relationship between Amanda and Marcus had begun 4 months before the mortgage fraud occurred, indicating that Amanda had been planning the identity theft for an extended period rather than acting impulsively during a housing crisis. Email exchanges showed that Marcus had coached Amanda on specific techniques for avoiding fraud detection and had charged her $3,000 for the forged documents used in the mortgage application. This elevates the charges significantly, Detective Martinez continued. Your sister was not simply committing identity theft, but was participating in an organized fraud operation. The federal prosecutors are very interested in this case because it connects to a larger investigation of Marcus Thompson's activities. The revelation that Amanda had paid for professional fraud services using money she had obtained through earlier deceptive practices led to the discovery of additional financial crimes that predated the mortgage fraud. Bank records showed that Amanda had been systematically overdrawing her checking account and manipulating deposit timing to create false balances that she used for temporary financial relief. More disturbing was the discovery that Amanda had been forging endorsements on checks made payable to Greenfield Elementary School's charity fundraising account. As the teacher responsible for managing fundraising deposits, Amanda had access to checks intended for school programs and had been redirecting portions of donations to her personal account through altered endorsements. The charity fraud represented a betrayal that extended beyond family relationships to include theft from children's educational programs. The stolen funds, totaling approximately $8,000 over 6 months, had been used to pay Marcus Thompson for the fraudulent documents and to cover living expenses while Amanda planned the identity theft scheme. Dr. Patricia Rodriguez, the principal at Greenfield Elementary School, expressed shock when Detective Martinez informed her about Amanda's theft from school fundraising accounts. The revelation prompted an immediate audit of all financial accounts that Amanda had managed, revealing additional discrepancies that suggested the theft was more extensive than initially calculated. Amanda was one of our most trusted faculty members, Dr. Rodriguez explained during our conversation. She volunteered to manage fundraising activities and always seemed dedicated to supporting our students. The idea that she was stealing from programs intended to benefit children is heartbreaking. The school's audit revealed that Amanda's theft had directly impacted funding for after-school tutoring programs, library resource purchases, and art supplies for low-income students. The stolen money represented educational opportunities that had been denied to children who were already facing economic challenges, adding a dimension of moral outrage to Amanda's criminal activity. Catherine Morrison, my attorney, confirmed that the discovery of additional criminal activity strengthened both the criminal case against Amanda and the civil litigation for damages. The pattern of systematic fraud demonstrated that Amanda's identity theft was part of a broader criminal enterprise rather than an isolated incident of poor judgment. The evidence shows that your sister has been engaged in criminal activity for nearly a year, using increasingly sophisticated methods to steal money from various sources, Catherine explained during our strategy meeting. This significantly increases the potential damages we can recover and strengthens our position for seeking punitive damages beyond simple restitution. The expanding scope of Amanda's criminal activity also revealed additional victims who had been harmed by her deceptive practices. Detective Martinez's investigation identified 2 other Greenfield Elementary School employees who had been manipulated into providing personal information that Amanda had attempted to use for fraudulent credit applications. Lisa Chen, a first-grade teacher who had worked closely with Amanda, reported that Amanda had requested copies of Lisa's pay stubs and benefits information, claiming she needed examples for her own mortgage application process. Lisa had provided the documents without suspicion, not realizing that Amanda was collecting information that could be used for identity theft. Amanda was always asking questions about everyone's financial situation, Lisa recalled during her interview with Detective Martinez. She seemed interested in how much people earned, what their credit scores were, and how they managed their expenses. I thought she was just trying to improve her own financial situation. The pattern of information gathering revealed that Amanda had been systematically collecting personal and financial data from colleagues, friends, and family members as potential resources for fraudulent activities. The discovery raised concerns about additional identity theft victims who had not yet been identified or who might not have discovered fraudulent accounts opened in their names. My own investigation into Amanda's access to my personal information revealed additional security breaches that had enabled her fraud. A review of my digital accounts showed that Amanda had been accessing my email account for several months, using password recovery questions that she could answer based on family knowledge. The email access had provided Amanda with detailed information about my financial accounts, employment history, and credit monitoring activities that allowed her to time her fraudulent activities to avoid detection. She had been reading correspondence from my bank, credit card companies, and credit monitoring services, giving her advance warning of any suspicious activity alerts. Most disturbing was the discovery that Amanda had been forwarding copies of my financial correspondence to an external email account that she controlled, creating a comprehensive archive of my personal financial information. The systematic data collection demonstrated planning and preparation that extended far beyond the mortgage fraud itself. The technical investigation also revealed that Amanda had installed keylogging software on my laptop during a family gathering where she had offered to help troubleshoot performance issues. The malicious software had been recording my passwords and login credentials for months, providing Amanda with access to online accounts that she had used to gather information for identity theft. Your sister had essentially created a complete duplicate of your financial identity, explained cybersecurity consultant David Park, who was assisting with the technical aspects of the investigation. She had access to your accounts, your correspondence, and your financial planning activities. This level of preparation indicates sophisticated criminal intent. The cybersecurity investigation extended to other family members and friends who had interacted with Amanda's digital devices. The examination revealed that Amanda had attempted similar information-gathering activities with our parents and several mutual friends, though these efforts had been less successful due to stronger password security and limited access opportunities. The broader pattern of attempted identity theft reinforced the conclusion that Amanda viewed fraud as a systematic solution to financial challenges rather than a last resort during a crisis. The evidence suggested that she had been developing expertise in financial manipulation with the intention of expanding her criminal activities beyond the initial mortgage fraud. As the investigation continued, I began receiving calls from additional victims who had been contacted by law enforcement or who had discovered fraudulent activity that connected to Amanda's scheme. The calls provided both additional evidence of Amanda's criminal enterprise and opportunities to assist other victims in recovering from fraud. Maria Gonzalez, a parent at Greenfield Elementary School, contacted me after discovering that someone had attempted to open credit cards using her daughter's Social Security number. The investigation revealed that Amanda had access to student records through her teaching position and had been collecting Social Security numbers from families participating in free lunch programs. I trusted Amanda because she was my daughter's teacher, Maria explained during our conversation. When she offered to help with financial aid applications, I provided personal information because I thought she was trying to help us access educational resources. The revelation that Amanda had been exploiting her position as an educator to victimize the families she was supposed to serve represented a new level of betrayal that extended beyond personal relationships to professional responsibilities. The discovery prompted additional investigations by school district authorities and state education officials. Dr. Rodriguez confirmed that the school district was conducting a comprehensive review of Amanda's access to confidential information and her interactions with families. The investigation had already resulted in policy changes regarding faculty access to student records and new training requirements for staff members who handled sensitive information. This situation has forced us to recognize vulnerabilities in our information security practices, Dr. Rodriguez acknowledged. Amanda's position as a trusted educator gave her access to family information that we never imagined could be misused for criminal purposes. The expanding investigation also revealed that Derek Williams had been more actively involved in Amanda's fraud scheme than initially apparent. Financial records showed that Derek had been receiving direct payments from accounts that Amanda had funded through various fraudulent activities, making him a knowing beneficiary of stolen money rather than simply an unknowing recipient of housing benefits. Detective Martinez's questioning of Derek revealed that he had been aware of Amanda's document forgery activities and had assisted with creating false employment verification letters by providing information about construction companies that would be difficult for lenders to verify independently. Derek's unemployment status and construction industry knowledge had made him valuable to Amanda's fraud operation. Derek was not just living in the house that was purchased fraudulently, Detective Martinez explained. He was actively participating in the fraud scheme and receiving direct financial benefits from criminal activity. This makes him a co-conspirator, rather than simply someone who benefited passively from your sister's crimes. The evidence of Derek's active participation expanded the criminal case to include conspiracy charges and provided additional defendants for civil litigation. Catherine Morrison confirmed that Derek's involvement created opportunities for recovering damages from multiple sources and strengthened the overall case by demonstrating that Amanda's fraud was an organized criminal enterprise. By the end of the second week of investigation, the scope of Amanda's betrayal had expanded from a single incident of mortgage fraud to a comprehensive criminal operation that had victimized multiple individuals and institutions over nearly a year. The systematic nature of her criminal activity demonstrated planning, coordination, and escalation that indicated she had been prepared to continue expanding her fraudulent activities indefinitely. However, the investigation process had also provided me with comprehensive knowledge of fraud detection, investigation techniques, and recovery procedures that represented valuable expertise in an increasingly important field. The experience of coordinating with law enforcement, financial institutions, and cybersecurity professionals had developed capabilities that could benefit other fraud victims. The transformation that was occurring through necessity was becoming increasingly apparent. Amanda's betrayal had forced me to develop expertise in areas that represented significant business opportunities, particularly as identity theft and financial fraud continued to affect millions of people annually. The knowledge gained through adversity was becoming the foundation for a business concept that could generate substantial impact and income while helping others recover from similar betrayals. The realization that emerged during those intense weeks of investigation was both personally empowering and professionally exciting. Amanda had stolen my credit score and attempted to destroy my financial future, but her criminal activity had inadvertently provided me with expertise and knowledge that represented opportunities far exceeding anything she had taken from me. The third week of investigation brought a development that fundamentally transformed my understanding of both the scope of Amanda's criminal enterprise and the broader implications of financial fraud in our community. Detective Martinez contacted me with information that would reshape the entire trajectory of both the criminal case and my emerging vision for how to address the systemic problems that Amanda's activities had exposed. We've identified 17 additional victims of fraud schemes connected to your sister's activities, Detective Martinez announced during our scheduled update meeting. The pattern suggests that Amanda was operating as part of a much larger criminal network that has been targeting residents throughout North Carolina for nearly 2 years. The revelation that Amanda's fraud extended far beyond personal betrayal to encompass systematic victimization of dozens of families represented both a shocking expansion of her criminal culpability and an unprecedented opportunity to understand the full spectrum of identity theft recovery challenges. The investigation had uncovered a comprehensive fraud operation that provided insights into every aspect of financial crime and recovery. The victim network included individuals from diverse backgrounds and economic circumstances, ranging from elderly retirees whose savings had been systematically drained through unauthorized account access to young families who had discovered fraudulent credit accounts that threatened their ability to secure housing and employment. The breadth of victimization demonstrated that identity theft represented a pervasive threat that transcended demographic boundaries and required comprehensive solutions. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, a retired psychology professor who had been victimized, through Amanda's scheme, contacted me after learning about my case through Detective Martinez's investigation. Her experience provided valuable insights into the emotional and psychological impact of identity theft that extended far beyond the immediate financial consequences. The violation of trust and security affects every aspect of daily life, Dr. Walsh explained during our conversation. Even after the financial accounts are restored, victims continue to experience anxiety about financial security and difficulty trusting institutions that are supposed to protect personal information. Dr. Walsh's academic background in trauma psychology had enabled her to recognize patterns in identity theft recovery that were often overlooked by financial institutions and law enforcement agencies. Her analysis revealed that successful recovery required addressing both the practical aspects of financial restoration and the psychological impact of violated security and breached trust. Identity theft victims often develop hypervigilance about financial monitoring and experience ongoing stress that affects their ability to make normal financial decisions, Dr. Walsh continued. The recovery process needs to address these psychological factors to be truly effective. The conversation with Dr. Walsh highlighted gaps in existing identity theft recovery services that focused primarily on technical restoration of credit profiles while neglecting the broader support that victims required for complete recovery. The insight reinforced my growing conviction that there was substantial opportunity for comprehensive services that addressed all aspects of identity theft impact. Maria Santos, a single mother of 3 children who had been victimized through Amanda's exploitation of school records, provided additional perspective on the practical challenges that identity theft created for working families. Her case demonstrated how financial fraud could cascade through multiple aspects of family life, affecting everything from housing stability to children's educational opportunities. When fraudulent accounts appeared on my credit report, I couldn't qualify for the apartment lease renewal, Maria explained during our meeting. We had to move in with relatives while I fought to clear the false information, and my children had to change schools in the middle of the academic year. Maria's experience revealed that identity theft victims often faced time-sensitive decisions about housing, employment, and financial planning that could not wait for the lengthy process of credit restoration and legal resolution. The immediate, practical needs required resources and advocacy that were typically unavailable through standard recovery channels. The credit monitoring services and legal advice were helpful, but they didn't address the immediate problems of finding housing and maintaining employment while the investigation proceeded, Maria continued. I needed someone who understood how to navigate emergency financial decisions while protecting my long-term interests. The practical insights from Maria's experience aligned with similar challenges reported by other victims in Amanda's fraud network. The pattern suggested substantial demand for comprehensive identity theft recovery services that could address immediate practical needs while coordinating long-term financial restoration and legal proceedings. Robert Chen, an elderly victim, whose retirement savings had been compromised through Amanda's scheme, provided additional perspective on the vulnerability of older adults to financial fraud and the unique challenges they faced during recovery. His case demonstrated how identity theft could threaten financial security that had been developed over decades of careful planning and saving. At my age, there isn't time to rebuild savings that have been stolen through fraud, Robert explained during our conversation. The impact extends beyond the immediate financial loss to include anxiety about maintaining independence and security during retirement years. Robert's situation highlighted the particular urgency of identity theft. Recovery for older adults who lacked the time horizon and earning capacity to absorb significant financial losses. His case also revealed opportunities for specialized services that addressed the unique needs of elderly fraud victims while protecting them from additional exploitation. The existing services assume that victims have decades to rebuild their financial position and recover from fraud impact, Robert continued. But older adults need faster resolution and more comprehensive protection to maintain financial stability during vulnerable life stages. The conversations with multiple fraud victims provided comprehensive understanding of the diverse challenges that identity theft created across different demographic groups and economic circumstances. The insights revealed substantial gaps in existing recovery services and significant opportunities for innovative approaches that address the full spectrum of victim needs. Detective Martinez's expanded investigation also revealed the sophisticated infrastructure that had enabled Amanda's fraud network to operate successfully for extended periods. The criminal organization included specialists in document forgery, cybersecurity exploitation, and financial institution manipulation who had developed systematic approaches to identity theft that were difficult for traditional fraud detection systems to identify. The fraud network operated like a professional services business, with different individuals handling specialized aspects of identity theft and financial manipulation, Detective Martinez explained during our briefing about the broader investigation. Amanda was essentially a client who purchased services from criminals who had developed expertise in defeating financial security measures. The professional structure of the fraud network had enabled participants like Amanda to commit sophisticated crimes without developing technical expertise independently. The organization provided training, documentation templates, and ongoing support that allowed individuals with limited criminal experience to execute complex fraud schemes successfully. Marcus Thompson, the document forger who had supplied Amanda with fraudulent verification materials, was arrested during a coordinated federal operation that dismantled his entire organization. The investigation revealed that Marcus had been providing fraud services to dozens of clients throughout the southeastern United States, generating millions of dollars in fraudulent transactions over several years. Marcus's operation was essentially a fraud-as-a-service business that enabled ordinary people to commit sophisticated financial crimes, Detective Martinez continued. The arrest has disrupted a network that was responsible for hundreds of identity theft cases across multiple states. The federal investigation of Marcus Thompson's organization provided additional evidence that strengthened the criminal case against Amanda while revealing the broader context of professional fraud services that threatened financial security throughout the region. The information also highlighted the need for enhanced fraud detection and prevention services that could identify and counter sophisticated criminal enterprises. As the victim network expanded and the investigation revealed additional layers of criminal activity, I began receiving requests for assistance and advice from other fraud victims who had learned about my case through law enforcement contacts and media coverage. The requests provided opportunities to apply the knowledge and expertise I had developed while helping others navigate similar challenges. Patricia Rodriguez, a victim whose case shared similarities with my experience of family member fraud, contacted me for guidance about legal options and recovery strategies. Her brother had used her identity to obtain credit cards and personal loans, creating financial obligations that threatened her ability to purchase a home for her growing family. The police told me that family member fraud is particularly difficult to prosecute because it often involves individuals who had legitimate access to personal information, Patricia explained during our phone conversation. But the impact on my financial future is just as severe as if a stranger had stolen my identity. Patricia's case highlighted the unique challenges associated with family member fraud, including the emotional complexity of prosecuting relatives and the difficulty of proving criminal intent when perpetrators had previously legitimate access to personal information. Her situation provided additional insights into the specialized knowledge required for addressing different types of identity theft. I've been trying to navigate the recovery process independently, but the financial institutions and credit agencies seem to have different requirements and procedures, Patricia continued. Having someone who understands the complete process and can coordinate between all the different organizations would be invaluable. The request for comprehensive coordination and advocacy services aligned with similar needs expressed by other fraud victims I had encountered. The pattern reinforced my growing conviction that there was substantial market demand for professional identity theft recovery services that could manage all aspects of the restoration process while providing ongoing support and protection. David Park, the cybersecurity consultant who had assisted with the technical aspects of my case, confirmed that the knowledge and experience I had developed represented valuable expertise in a rapidly growing field. The combination of legal understanding, financial institution relationships, and victim advocacy skills created a unique professional profile that could generate significant business opportunities. Identity theft and financial fraud are increasing exponentially as criminals develop more sophisticated techniques and gain access to better technology, David explained during our discussion about the broader market trends. The demand for comprehensive recovery services far exceeds the available expertise, particularly for complex cases that involve multiple institutions and criminal enterprises. David's analysis of the identity theft recovery market revealed substantial opportunities for innovative service providers who could offer comprehensive solutions rather than the fragmented approaches that characterized existing services. The market research suggested that victims were willing to pay premium rates for effective advocacy and coordination that could accelerate recovery while minimizing ongoing risks. The existing services typically address individual aspects of identity theft recovery, such as credit restoration or legal representation, but very few providers offer integrated solutions that manage the entire process," David continued. "There's substantial opportunity for service providers who can coordinate all aspects of recovery while providing ongoing protection and monitoring." Catherine Morrison, my attorney, confirmed that the legal expertise I had developed through managing my own case represented valuable knowledge that could benefit other fraud victims while generating substantial professional income. The combination of personal experience and comprehensive legal understanding created opportunities for specialized consulting and advocacy services. Your case has required coordination between criminal law, civil litigation, financial regulation, and cybersecurity that most attorneys never encounter in a single matter," Catherine explained during our strategy meeting. "The knowledge you've developed about navigating complex fraud cases could be extremely valuable to other victims and their legal representatives." Catherine's assessment revealed that the expertise I had gained through necessity represented professional capabilities that typically required years of specialized practice to develop. The comprehensive understanding of identity theft recovery processes, combined with personal experience of victim perspectives, created unique qualifications for providing consulting and advocacy services. As the third week of investigation concluded, the scope of Amanda's criminal network had expanded to include dozens of victims and multiple criminal organizations operating throughout the southeastern United States. The investigation had revealed sophisticated fraud infrastructure that threatened financial security for millions of residents, while highlighting substantial gaps in existing protection and recovery services. The personal betrayal that had initially devastated my financial plans was emerging as the foundation for understanding a systemic problem that affected countless individuals and families. Amanda's fraud had provided me with comprehensive knowledge of identity theft recovery that represented valuable expertise in a growing market with substantial demand for innovative solutions. The transformation from victim to expert was accelerating. As I recognized the business opportunities that emerged from the knowledge and capabilities I had developed through adversity, the skills gained through necessity were becoming the foundation for professional services that could generate significant impact and income while helping others recover from similar betrayals. The realization that crystallized during those intense weeks was both personally empowering and professionally exciting. Amanda had attempted to destroy my financial future through systematic fraud, but her criminal activity had inadvertently provided me with expertise and opportunities that exceeded anything she had stolen. The betrayal that had seemed devastating was becoming the catalyst for building something extraordinary from the foundation of knowledge gained through overcoming deliberate sabotage. The fourth week following the discovery of Amanda's fraud marked a pivotal transition in my approach to the crisis. Rather than simply responding to the immediate challenges of identity theft recovery, I began systematically documenting and analyzing every aspect of the process to develop comprehensive expertise that could benefit other victims while establishing the foundation for a sustainable business model. The realization that had emerged from my interactions with other fraud victims was both professionally motivating and personally empowering. The knowledge I had gained through necessity represented valuable intellectual capital that could generate substantial income while providing meaningful service to individuals and families facing similar challenges. The transformation from victim to expert was accelerating as I recognized the market opportunities that existed within the identity theft recovery industry. My first priority was creating systematic documentation of the recovery processes, legal procedures, and institutional relationships that I had developed through managing my own case. The comprehensive knowledge base would serve multiple purposes, including reference material for future consulting work, training resources for potential employees, and intellectual property that could differentiate my services from existing competitors in the fraud recovery market. The documentation process revealed the remarkable scope of expertise I had accumulated in a relatively short period. The necessity of coordinating between law enforcement agencies, financial institutions, credit reporting bureaus, cybersecurity, Consultants and legal professionals had provided comprehensive understanding of systems and procedures that typically required years of specialized practice to master. Detective Martinez had provided detailed insights into criminal investigation procedures, evidence collection requirements, and prosecution strategies that enabled effective coordination between victim advocacy and law enforcement objectives. The knowledge included understanding of federal and state jurisdictional issues, evidence preservation requirements, and witness coordination procedures that were essential for successful fraud prosecution. Your systematic approach to documentation and evidence preservation has made this one of the most efficient fraud investigations I have managed, Detective Martinez observed during our weekly update meeting. The organizational skills and attention to detail you have demonstrated could be extremely valuable for other victims who lack the knowledge to navigate these complex procedures effectively. The validation from law enforcement confirmed that the methodical approach I had developed represented professional-level capabilities that could benefit other fraud victims while generating consulting income. The systematic documentation of investigation procedures and coordination strategies created intellectual property that could support a specialized consulting practice. Catherine Morrison had similarly confirmed that the legal knowledge I had gained through managing civil litigation and criminal prosecution represented expertise that typically required extensive professional training to develop. The understanding of fraud-related statutes, civil procedure requirements, and damage calculation methods created capabilities that could support legal consulting and expert witness services. The comprehensive understanding you have developed of both criminal and civil aspects of fraud cases is unusual even among attorneys who specialize in this area, Catherine explained during our strategy review meeting. Your combination of personal experience and systematic analysis provides unique qualifications for consulting with other legal professionals who encounter identity theft cases. The legal expertise encompassed understanding of state and federal fraud statutes, civil litigation procedures, damage calculation methodologies, and coordination between criminal prosecution and civil recovery efforts. The knowledge also included familiarity with specialized legal concepts, such as treble damages, punitive damage standards, and asset recovery procedures that were essential for maximizing financial recovery for fraud victims. The financial institution relationships I had developed through managing my case provided additional valuable capabilities that could benefit other fraud victims. The experience of coordinating with bank fraud departments, credit union security teams, and credit reporting agency dispute resolution systems had created professional relationships and procedural knowledge that could accelerate recovery for future clients. Robert Martinez at Mountain View Credit Union had confirmed that the systematic approach I had employed for documenting and disputing fraudulent accounts represented best practices that many victims failed to implement effectively. The methodical coordination between institution-specific procedures and regulatory requirements had enabled faster resolution than typically achieved through standard consumer advocacy approaches. The level of preparation and documentation you provided enabled us to resolve your fraud dispute much more efficiently than usual, Robert explained during our final case review meeting. Most victims lack the knowledge to present information in ways that align with our internal procedures and regulatory requirements, which significantly delays the resolution process. The institutional knowledge included understanding of specific documentation requirements, escalation procedures, and regulatory compliance standards that governed fraud dispute resolution at different types of financial institutions. The expertise also encompassed knowledge of consumer protection regulations, dispute timeline requirements, and coordination procedures between multiple institutions when fraud affected multiple accounts. David Park, the cybersecurity consultant, had provided comprehensive training in digital security procedures, malware detection techniques, and identity protection systems that were essential for preventing future fraud attempts. The technical knowledge represented capabilities that could support cybersecurity consulting services while providing ongoing protection for fraud recovery clients. The technical skills you have developed through securing your own digital identity represent professional-level cybersecurity knowledge, David assessed during our final consulting session. The understanding of identity protection systems, fraud detection techniques, and security monitoring procedures could support consulting services for both individual victims and small businesses that lack internal cybersecurity expertise. The cybersecurity knowledge included understanding of password management systems, multi-factor authentication implementation, network security monitoring, and identity theft prevention procedures that were essential for comprehensive fraud protection. The expertise also encompassed knowledge of malware detection and removal, device security auditing, and secure communication procedures that could benefit both individual and business clients. As I compiled the comprehensive knowledge base that had emerged from managing my fraud recovery, the scope of expertise became apparent even to me. The necessity of coordinating multiple professional disciplines had created capabilities that typically required years of specialized education and practice to develop. The combination of personal experience and systematic analysis had generated intellectual capital that represented substantial business opportunities. The market research I conducted during this period confirmed significant demand for the type of comprehensive fraud recovery services that my expertise could support. The Federal Trade Commission reported that identity theft affected over 14 million Americans annually, with total financial losses exceeding $50 billion. The statistics indicated a substantial market that was underserved by existing recovery services. The competitive analysis revealed that existing identity theft recovery services typically focused on individual aspects of the restoration process rather than providing comprehensive coordination and advocacy. Credit monitoring companies offered detection services but limited recovery assistance. Legal service providers handled litigation but lacked technical and financial expertise. Financial advisors understood credit restoration but lacked legal and cybersecurity knowledge. The fragmented service landscape created substantial opportunities for integrated service providers who could manage all aspects of identity theft recovery while providing ongoing protection and monitoring. The market research indicated that victims were willing to pay premium rates for effective coordination that could accelerate recovery while minimizing ongoing risks and preventing future fraud attempts. Patricia Wilson, a business development consultant who specialized in professional services marketing, confirmed that the expertise I had developed represented valuable intellectual capital that could support multiple revenue streams within the fraud recovery industry. The combination of personal experience, systematic analysis, and professional relationships created unique market positioning that could generate substantial competitive advantages. The comprehensive expertise you have developed addresses all aspects of identity theft recovery, which is unusual in a market characterized by specialized service providers, Patricia explained during our consultation meeting. The integrated knowledge base creates opportunities for premium pricing while providing genuine value that justifies higher fees than fragmented service alternatives. Patricia's analysis revealed multiple potential business models that could leverage my expertise, including individual consulting services, corporate training programs, legal expert witness services, and technology consulting for financial institutions, seeking to improve fraud detection and prevention capabilities. The diverse revenue opportunities suggested that the business concept could generate substantial income while maintaining focus on victim advocacy and fraud prevention. The business planning process also revealed opportunities for scaling the service model through training and certification programs that could expand the availability of comprehensive fraud recovery services while generating additional revenue streams. The systematic knowledge base I had developed could support training programs for legal professionals, financial advisors, and cybersecurity consultants who wanted to expand their service offerings to include identity theft recovery. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, the psychology professor who had been victimized through Amanda's fraud network, provided additional insights into the market opportunities that existed for specialized services addressing the psychological and emotional aspects of identity theft recovery. Her analysis revealed substantial gaps in existing services that focused primarily on technical restoration while neglecting the broader support that victims required for complete recovery. The trauma and anxiety associated with identity theft require specialized intervention that addresses both the practical aspects of financial restoration and the psychological impact of violated security and breached trust. Dr. Walsh explained during our discussion about potential collaboration opportunities. The combination of comprehensive recovery expertise and psychological support could create unique value for fraud victims while generating premium service fees. The collaboration possibilities with Dr. Walsh suggested opportunities for developing specialized service offerings that addressed all aspects of identity theft impact, including psychological counseling, financial restoration, legal advocacy, and ongoing protection services. The integrated approach could provide complete recovery support while differentiating the service offering from existing competitors in the fraud recovery market. As the fourth week of documentation and business planning concluded, I had developed a comprehensive understanding of both the technical requirements for effective fraud recovery and the market opportunities that existed for innovative service providers. The knowledge gained through necessity had been systematically organized and analyzed to create intellectual capital that could support multiple business applications. The transformation that had occurred through adversity was remarkable in its scope and implications. Amanda's betrayal had forced me to develop expertise in legal procedures, financial institution coordination, cybersecurity implementation, and victim advocacy that represented professional-level capabilities acquired through intensive practical experience rather than formal education or training. The systematic approach to documenting and analyzing every aspect of the recovery process had created intellectual property that could support consulting services, training programs, expert witness testimony, and technology development. The comprehensive knowledge base represented valuable assets that could generate substantial income while providing meaningful service to fraud victims who lacked the resources and expertise to navigate complex recovery procedures independently. The business concept that emerged from this systematic analysis was both ambitious and achievable. The integrated fraud recovery service model would provide comprehensive coordination and advocacy for identity theft victims while offering specialized consulting services to legal professionals, financial institutions, and cybersecurity firms. The diverse revenue streams would ensure financial sustainability while maintaining focus on victim advocacy and fraud prevention. The irony of the situation was becoming increasingly apparent as the business planning process advanced. Amanda's attempt to destroy my financial future through systematic fraud had provided me with expertise and opportunities that exceeded anything she had stolen. The betrayal that had initially seemed devastating was emerging as the catalyst for building something extraordinary from the foundation of knowledge gained through overcoming deliberate sabotage. The personal growth that had occurred through managing the crisis was equally significant. The systematic approach to problem-solving, the ability to coordinate multiple professional disciplines, and the confidence to challenge institutional procedures had developed capabilities that would benefit all aspects of my professional and personal life. Amanda's fraud had inadvertently provided comprehensive professional development that would have been impossible to achieve through traditional education or career advancement. As I prepared to begin implementing the business concept that had emerged from this systematic analysis, the transformation from victim to expert was complete. The knowledge and capabilities gained through adversity represented valuable intellectual capital that could generate substantial impact and income, while helping others recover from similar betrayals. Amanda had stolen my credit score, but she had given me something far more valuable: the expertise and motivation necessary to build a business that would protect others from experiencing the devastation she had caused me. The opportunity to apply my developing expertise to assist another fraud victim presented itself unexpectedly during the 5th week following the discovery of Amanda's betrayal. The call came from Margaret Thompson, a 67-year-old retired teacher whose financial security had been systematically dismantled through sophisticated identity theft that bore striking similarities to the criminal enterprise that had victimized me and dozens of others throughout North Carolina. Margaret had obtained my contact information through Detective Martinez, who had suggested that my experience and systematic approach to fraud recovery might provide valuable assistance. For her particularly complex case, the initial phone conversation revealed the scope of financial devastation that identity theft could inflict when victims lacked the knowledge and resources necessary to respond effectively to sophisticated criminal activity. I discovered the bullseye fraud 3 months ago when my bank called to verify a wire transfer for $38,000 that I had never authorized, Margaret explained during our initial consultation. Since then, I have learned about fraudulent credit cards, personal loans, and even an attempt to access my retirement accounts. The financial institutions keep telling me that the investigation process takes time, but I am watching my life savings disappear while they conduct their reviews. Margaret's situation represented the type of comprehensive identity theft that required coordinated response across multiple institutions and agencies. The complexity of her case provided an ideal opportunity to apply the systematic recovery procedures I had developed while testing the effectiveness of my integrated service model under real-world conditions that would validate the business concept. The initial assessment of Margaret's case revealed the sophisticated nature of the identity theft and the inadequacy of the fragmented response she had received from individual financial institutions. The perpetrators had gained access to her personal information through multiple channels, including compromised medical records, stolen mail, and social engineering techniques that had convinced bank representatives to provide account access over the telephone. The fraud timeline extended back nearly 8 months, indicating that the criminals had been systematically exploiting Margaret's identity while she remained unaware of the ongoing theft. The delay in detection had enabled the perpetrators to establish multiple fraudulent accounts and conduct numerous unauthorized transactions before Margaret discovered the initial wire transfer that alerted her to the criminal activity. The financial impact was devastating for someone on a fixed retirement income. The unauthorized transactions totaled over $65,000, representing a significant portion of Margaret's retirement savings that had been accumulated through decades of careful financial planning and disciplined saving. The fraudulent accounts had also damaged her credit profile, potentially affecting her ability to access legitimate financial services in the future. More troubling was the ongoing nature of the fraud attempts. Despite Margaret's efforts to secure her accounts and notify relevant institutions, the criminals continued to attempt new fraudulent transactions and account openings using variations of her personal information. The persistent criminal activity suggested that the perpetrators had comprehensive access to her personal data and were prepared to continue exploitation until effective countermeasures were implemented. The institutional responses to Margaret's fraud reports had been inconsistent and inadequately coordinated. Each financial institution had conducted independent investigations using different procedures and timelines, creating gaps in the recovery process that allowed continued criminal activity. The lack of coordination between institutions had also resulted in conflicting recommendations and duplicative documentation requirements that confused and frustrated Margaret's recovery efforts. Every bank and credit card company has different forms to complete and different procedures to follow, Margaret continued during our assessment meeting. I spend hours every day on the phone with customer service representatives who ask the same questions and request the same documentation that I have already provided to other departments. The process feels overwhelming, and I am not confident that anything meaningful is being accomplished. Margaret's experience highlighted the fundamental problems with existing fraud recovery services that I had identified through my own case and research into the broader market. The fragmented approach to identity theft recovery created inefficiencies and gaps that prolonged the restoration process while leaving victims vulnerable to continued exploitation. The opportunity to assist Margaret represented more than professional validation of my business concept. Her case provided the chance to apply comprehensive recovery procedures under controlled conditions that would demonstrate the effectiveness of integrated service coordination while generating documented results that could support future marketing and business development efforts. My proposal to Margaret outlined a systematic approach to fraud recovery that would coordinate all aspects of her case while providing ongoing protection against future criminal activity. The service model included comprehensive documentation of all fraudulent accounts and transactions, coordinated dispute filing with all affected institutions, direct communication with law enforcement agencies, implementation of enhanced security measures, and ongoing monitoring to detect and prevent future fraud attempts. The fee structure reflected the premium value of comprehensive coordination while remaining accessible for clients on fixed incomes. Rather than charging hourly rates that could escalate unpredictably, the service model utilized project-based fees that provided clients with cost certainty while ensuring adequate compensation for the extensive coordination and advocacy required for complex fraud recovery. Margaret's acceptance of the comprehensive service proposal marked the official launch of Sterling Identity Recovery, the business concept that had emerged from my systematic analysis of fraud recovery procedures and market opportunities. The AUS name reflected both my surname and the standard of excellence I intended to establish for integrated identity theft recovery services. The first week of client service with Margaret's case provided immediate validation of the systematic approach I had developed through managing my own fraud recovery. The comprehensive documentation and coordination procedures that had emerged from necessity proved equally effective when applied to another victim's complex identity theft situation. The institutional responses to professionally coordinated fraud recovery efforts were dramatically more efficient than the results Margaret had achieved through individual advocacy efforts. Financial institutions that had previously provided generic customer service responses began assigning specialized fraud investigators and expediting dispute resolution procedures when presented with comprehensive documentation and systematic coordination requests. The relationship with Detective Martinez proved particularly valuable for accelerating the criminal investigation aspects of Margaret's case. The systematic evidence compilation and presentation that I provided enabled law enforcement to identify connections between Margaret's fraud and the broader criminal enterprise that had victimized numerous other individuals throughout the region. The level of organization and documentation you have provided for Margaret's case has enabled us to identify patterns and connections that we might have missed if the evidence had been presented in the typical fragmented manner, Detective Martinez confirmed during our coordination meeting. The systematic approach significantly enhances the effectiveness of our investigation while improving the likelihood of successful prosecution. The law enforcement coordination also revealed additional fraud victims whose cases were connected to Margaret's identity theft, providing opportunities for expanding the Sterling Identity Recovery client base while contributing to the broader criminal investigation that could prevent future victimization. Catherine Morrison confirmed that the legal advocacy component of Margaret's case demonstrated the value of comprehensive coordination between civil recovery efforts and criminal prosecution procedures. The systematic approach to damage documentation and asset recovery had identified opportunities for financial restoration that might have been overlooked through standard consumer advocacy approaches. The comprehensive analysis you have provided of Margaret's financial losses and ongoing damages creates a foundation for civil litigation that could recover substantially more than simple restitution of the stolen funds, Catherine explained during our case strategy meeting. The systematic documentation also supports claims for consequential damages, emotional distress compensation, and punitive damages that could provide meaningful deterrent effect. The civil litigation component of Margaret's case also provided opportunities for recovering attorney fees and costs through statutory provisions that encouraged private enforcement of fraud-related laws. The fee recovery potential made comprehensive legal advocacy financially accessible for fraud victims, while ensuring adequate compensation for the extensive coordination required for complex cases. David Park's cybersecurity assessment of Margaret's case revealed vulnerabilities in her digital security practices that had enabled the initial identity theft and continued to create risks for future criminal exploitation. The systematic security, audit, and remediation procedures provided immediate protection, while demonstrating the value of integrated cybersecurity services within the comprehensive recovery model. The technical vulnerabilities that enabled Margaret's identity theft are common among older adults who lack comprehensive cybersecurity knowledge, David explained during the security assessment briefing. The systematic approach to identifying and addressing these vulnerabilities provides both immediate protection and ongoing monitoring that prevents future exploitation. The cybersecurity remediation procedures included password management system implementation, multi-factor authentication, setup, network security auditing, and ongoing monitoring services that detected and prevented unauthorized access attempts. The technical protection measures complemented the financial and legal recovery efforts while providing comprehensive security enhancement. The psychological support component of Margaret's recovery plan, developed in coordination with Dr. Jennifer Walsh, addressed the emotional and stress-related impacts of identity theft that extended beyond financial restoration. The counseling and support services helped Margaret regain confidence in financial decision-making while developing coping strategies for managing the anxiety associated with violated security and breached trust. The comprehensive support approach addresses all aspects of identity theft impact, rather than focusing solely on technical restoration of financial accounts, Dr. Walsh explained during our case coordination meeting. The integrated model provides more effective recovery while reducing the long-term psychological effects that can persist even after financial restoration is complete. The psychological support services also included educational components that helped Margaret understand identity theft prevention strategies and recognize potential fraud indicators that could prevent future victimization. The knowledge transfer approach ensured that clients developed long-term protection capabilities rather than remaining dependent on ongoing professional services. The first month of client service with Margaret's case exceeded expectations for both recovery results and business model validation. The systematic coordination of all recovery aspects had achieved faster resolution of fraudulent accounts, more comprehensive financial restoration, and better protection against future fraud attempts than Margaret had experienced through individual advocacy efforts. The financial results were particularly impressive. The comprehensive approach to damage, documentation, and asset recovery had identified opportunities for recovering funds that Margaret had assumed were permanently lost. The coordinated dispute procedures had resolved fraudulent accounts in weeks rather than months, and the enhanced security measures had successfully prevented multiple attempted fraud transactions that would have caused additional financial losses. The business metrics also validated the commercial viability of the Sterling Identity Recovery Service model. The project-based fee structure provided predictable revenue while maintaining client cost certainty. The comprehensive service approach justified premium pricing that generated substantially higher margins than fragmented service alternatives. The client satisfaction and referral potential created opportunities for sustainable business growth, based on demonstrated results rather than marketing promises. Margaret's enthusiastic endorsement of the Sterling Identity Recovery Services provided powerful validation of both the effectiveness of the systematic approach and the market demand for comprehensive fraud recovery coordination. Her willingness to provide referrals and testimonials created immediate opportunities for business expansion based on documented client success. The difference between trying to manage fraud recovery independently and having professional coordination is remarkable, Margaret explained during our case completion meeting. The systematic approach achieved results in weeks that I had been unable to accomplish in months of individual efforts. The peace of mind and financial protection provided by comprehensive services justified every dollar of the investment. The success of Margaret's case also attracted attention from other potential clients who had learned about Sterling Identity Recovery through law enforcement contacts, legal professional networks, and word-of-mouth referrals. The demand for comprehensive fraud recovery services confirmed the market opportunity that had emerged from my systematic analysis of industry gaps and client needs. The validation provided by Margaret's case established the foundation for scaling Sterling identity recovery into a sustainable business that could serve multiple clients simultaneously, while maintaining the quality and effectiveness that differentiated the service model from existing competitors. The systematic procedures and coordination protocols that had been developed through necessity could be applied consistently across different client situations while adapting to specific circumstances and requirements. The transformation that had occurred through building and implementing comprehensive fraud recovery services was both professionally satisfying and personally empowering. The expertise gained through adversity had been successfully applied to help another victim recover from devastating identity theft, while establishing a business model that could generate sustainable income and meaningful impact. The irony remained powerful that Amanda's betrayal had provided the foundation for developing capabilities and knowledge that exceeded anything she had stolen. The systematic expertise that had emerged from overcoming her fraud now enabled me to help other victims recover from similar betrayals, while building a business that transformed personal devastation into professional opportunity and community service. The success of Margaret Thompson's case established Sterling identity recovery as a legitimate business concept with demonstrated market value and proven service delivery capabilities. The comprehensive approach to fraud recovery had generated superior client outcomes while validating the commercial viability of integrated identity theft services. The foundation was now established for strategic expansion that would transform personal expertise into sustainable business enterprise. The immediate market response to Sterling identity recovery exceeded projections for both client demand and professional recognition. Within 2 weeks of completing Margaret's case, 3 additional fraud victims had contacted me seeking comprehensive recovery services. The referrals came through diverse channels, including law enforcement recommendations, legal professional networks, and direct word-of-mouth testimonials from Margaret herself. The incoming client inquiries represented varying complexity levels and fraud types, providing opportunities to test the systematic recovery procedures across different victim circumstances while refining service delivery protocols for optimal efficiency and effectiveness. The diversity of cases would enable development of specialized expertise in specific fraud categories while maintaining the comprehensive coordination approach that differentiated Sterling identity recovery from existing service providers. Thomas Mitchell, a small business owner whose company accounts had been compromised through sophisticated email phishing schemes, represented a new client category that required business-focused fraud recovery services. The case involved multiple business bank accounts, corporate credit lines, and vendor relationships that had been systematically exploited through identity theft targeting commercial rather than personal financial accounts. The fraud has affected every aspect of my business operations, Thomas explained during our initial consultation meeting. Vendors are demanding payment for orders I never placed, employees cannot access payroll accounts, and my business credit rating has been destroyed by fraudulent loan applications. The financial institutions treat business fraud differently from personal identity theft, and I cannot navigate these procedures while trying to maintain daily operations. Thomas's case highlighted the substantial market opportunity that existed for specialized business fraud recovery services that addressed the unique challenges faced by commercial identity theft victims. The complexity of business financial systems and the urgency of maintaining operational continuity created demand for premium services that could coordinate comprehensive recovery while minimizing business disruption. The business fraud recovery service model required adaptation of the systematic procedures I had developed for personal identity theft cases, while incorporating specialized knowledge of commercial banking practices, business credit reporting systems, and corporate legal requirements. The expansion into business services represented significant growth potential while leveraging existing expertise and institutional relationships. Linda Rodriguez, a healthcare worker whose medical identity had been stolen to obtain fraudulent medical services and prescription medications, represented another specialized fraud category that required unique recovery procedures. The case involved coordination with healthcare providers, insurance companies, and prescription monitoring systems that operated under different regulatory frameworks than traditional financial institutions. The identity theft has affected my ability to receive legitimate medical care because my medical records now contain false information about treatments and medications that I never received, Linda explained during our consultation. The insurance company has denied claims for legitimate care because they believe I have already received treatment for conditions that the fraudulent services addressed. Medical identity theft represented a growing fraud category that created health risks in addition to financial consequences. The systematic recovery procedures required coordination with healthcare providers, insurance companies, and medical record systems that operated under privacy regulations and professional standards that differed significantly from financial institution practices. The expansion into medical identity theft recovery required development of specialized expertise in healthcare privacy regulations, medical record correction procedures, and insurance dispute resolution systems. The specialized knowledge represented additional intellectual capital that could support premium service fees while addressing an underserved market segment with significant growth potential. Rebecca Foster, a military spouse whose identity had been stolen through compromised military personnel records, represented a third specialized fraud category that required understanding of federal employment systems, military banking services, and veteran benefit programs. The case involved fraudulent access to military benefits, unauthorized use of military identification, and compromise of security clearance information that could affect employment opportunities. The identity theft has threatened my husband's security clearance because the fraudulent accounts and activities appear in background investigations, Rebecca explained during our assessment meeting. The Military Personnel Security Office requires comprehensive documentation of the fraud recovery process to maintain his clearance status, and the standard consumer credit reports do not provide adequate detail for their review procedures. Military-related identity theft required coordination with federal agencies, military personnel offices, and specialized financial institutions that served military families. The recovery procedures needed to address both civilian financial restoration and military-specific requirements for security clearance maintenance and benefit protection. The expansion into military identity theft recovery represented another specialized market segment with unique requirements and substantial demand for comprehensive services. The specialized expertise could support premium service fees while providing essential protection for military families who faced particular vulnerability to identity theft through their federal employment status. The diversity of incoming client cases confirmed the substantial market opportunity that existed for comprehensive identity theft recovery services, while highlighting the need for systematic expansion that could serve multiple specialized markets without compromising service quality or operational efficiency. The challenge was developing scalable procedures and staffing models that could accommodate growth while maintaining the personalized attention and systematic coordination that differentiated Sterling Identity Recovery from existing competitors. The solution emerged through collaboration with the professional network I had developed through managing my own fraud recovery and Margaret's case. Rather than attempting to develop all specialized expertise internally, Sterling Identity Recovery could coordinate with established professionals who possessed complementary knowledge while maintaining overall case management and client relationship responsibilities. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.